All right, people, welcome back to Conquer and Commander. Today we're going to be looking at my Morinfen Commander deck. Wanted something a little different, a little outside the box. Morinfen seemed like he'd fit the bill, but he didn't quite turn out as I'd hoped. But before we get to that, I want to let you know that if you want to check out the deck list in written form, go to puremtgo.com. Look up my article series Conquer and Commander, and you'll see it typed up all nicely and neatly right here. Like this. I'm still in the process of writing the article, obviously. I usually am when I do these things. But it goes a little more into detail about exactly what I was trying to do with the deck. So let's just talk about Morinfen himself. You know, Morinfen, I've been trying to just find somewhat outside the box commanders. I don't really like playing with the stuff that everybody else uses all the time. And a lot of the new stuff hadn't really interested me too much. And I found Morinfen, and I kind of figured that he would, along with his, I believe his brother, Gallowbraid, could be a decent basis for a Suicide Black deck. Suicide Black isn't the best when it comes to 4-player Commander, which is entirely what I play. But I thought I could make it work with a couple of different cards. So let's just start right into it here. Before I get really into it, what I really wanted to use and make sure I used was the Mirror Universe type cards. There's Mirror Universe, Magus of the Mirror, and Soul Conduit. There's also Repay in Kind, which kind of costs a little more mana. And it doesn't really have the benefit of the switching in life totals. Here's Repay in Kind, where everybody becomes your life total. So I made that cut. And then on top of that, there's also Platinum Angel to make sure that you don't lose the game for going below 0 life. And I thought that, you know what, I could get a few tutors to grab these cards when I was low on life and do the old switcheroo. Didn't always work out like that. And as a matter of fact, I have to admit that I never actually used any of these cards while playing this deck. Mirror Universe and Magus of the Mirror both required that they be used during your upkeep, and Soul Conduit costs 12 mana before you get going. And although Mono Black has the opportunity to make that much mana, I had better things to do with my mana. Before the version that you see here, I actually kind of went overboard with all the Suicide Black stuff. I do have Hatred and Gallowbraid, and Nightmare Lash can reduce my life a lot. But I've got a lot more cards that cost life loss. But I cut a bunch of them out, and I added a bunch of life linking and ways to gain life, mainly because it's real tough to win when you bring yourself down to 10 life and everybody else, or you still have 2 opponents that are at 30 or more. You could always take out one fairly easily, but then you're at a severe disadvantage. So what I ended up doing was adding lifelink, and that's kind of another part of the reason was the deck almost turned into a life gain deck. The pieces just didn't mesh well. They didn't, and what it really turned into was, also because I wanted to make sure and use Morinfen to actually kill people, it turned into more of a Voltron deck with some gimmicks thrown in. Let's just go into the deck in a little more detail. We've got all the life linking stuff here. Wormcoil Engine, Sorin, who isn't really a life linker per se, but he gives you the ability to gain life as well as knocking somebody down to 10. Exquisite Blood, Batterskull, Whip of Erebos, which seemed like it'd be good. Vampire Nighthawk, Sword of War and Peace, Warhammer, Yumazawa, Elixir of Immortality, and Basilisk Collar. There's a bunch of ways to gain life in this deck. So you don't really usually have to worry about losing too much life. This being a mono black deck, we do have some of our usual mana helpers: Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Falling Glaciers, Cabal Coffers, Jet Medallion, Armillary Sphere, Crypt Gas, Liliana of the Dark Realms, Magus of the Coffers, Caged Sun, Narcana Revenant, Bubbling Muck, and there should be... Did I say? Yeah, Cabal Coffers is here. Okay. We also have Destruction in terms of Steel Hellkite, Carnal Liberated, Silence the Believers, which actually turned out to be a better card than I thought it would be. It worked out pretty well. Damnation, Hero's Downfall, Oblivion Stone, Withered Wretch for Graveyard Hate, Go for the Throat, Nihil Spellbomb, Strip Mine, and Toxic Deluge, which is another way to really make sure that you lose a lot of life quickly if you need to. We also have our card draw in terms of Disciple of Bolas. Disciple I added just because I knew that at some point Gallowbraid or Morinfen would be far enough along where I wouldn't want to keep them around, and as such the Disciple seemed like a good sack outlet. Erebos is another way to draw cards and lose life. Graveborn Muse, Baleful Force was actually a pretty fun card. The lack of evasion was really annoying, but being able to draw that many cards is always helpful. Bloodgift Demon, the better version of Morinfen, obviously. Phyrexian Arena. Necropotence is another way to reduce your life total quickly if necessary. And then Sword of Feast or Fire and Ice are always draw cards. Here we have a combination of our Recursion and our tutors. Recursion and Xiaodun. Beacon of Unrest seemed like a good idea to get my Mirror Universe or Soul Conduit back if necessary. Sword of Light and Shadow and Volrath Stronghold are both creature recursion. And then we have tutors in the form of Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Runescarred Demon, and then Diabolic Intent. Again, another sacrifice outlet so that in case Morinfen's upkeep becomes unwieldy, instead of just letting him go, I can get some use out of him by sacrificing him. Now, the way that cumulative upkeep works is that you basically add counters, and then you have to pay the life for the amount of counters on it. So what I did was I thought of a couple ways to remove counters in case I really wanted to do that. There's Aether Snap, Hex Parasite, and Vampire Hexmage. All of these cards actually work well with Dark Depths as well. So I added Dark Depths, and I was able to get Merit Lage out once or twice. That was a nice little fun benefit to the deck. Finally, we have our remainder of threats and equipment: Lash Writhe, Miri, Withering Boon, which is a fun blowout. People don't expect that. Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves, and Sword of Feast of Famine. We've also got Bajuka Bog, which can go in the removal suite. Winding Canyons, Nykthos, Deserted Temple, Maze of Ith, Petrified Field to get your stuff back. Thespian Stage, again, combos with Dark Depths. So you kind of see what I was really going for. What I was going for was the life loss theme with life gaining to make sure that I was able to recover, plus the Voltron theme. And the deck, because I never really got the Mirror Universe or the Magus of the Mirror or the Soul Conduit going, it just never happened. Felt like sort of a failure to me. I had two really opposing sides to the deck, the life gain and the life loss, and they didn't work well together. And if I'm going to be completely honest, while having Morinfen as your commander does have its benefits, the main one being that people aren't used to seeing him and they're scared crapless of it because they don't know what you're really going to do with it. So he eats a lot of removal, leaving your other threats out there untouched. His negative is that he's just not that great, and as a matter of fact, what you could probably do is just use Miri as your commander. She has haste and first strike and flying. She gets bigger. She has no life loss. You can get rid of the Mirror Universe, Magus of the Mirror, and Soul Conduit, and then add more credible threats. You'd probably lose a little bit of the versatility of the Hexmage, Parasite, and Aether Snap as well. But honestly, if you want to make it a good deck, you don't need all this extra crap that I threw in here. Looking at the stats for the deck, the average CMC is 3.66, which is a little high. The problem is there's a ton of 7 and 6 drops. And I did notice that I had lots of hands where I was just stuck with a lot of junk in my hand that I couldn't cast early on. The So, I mean, the deck won games, but it was very underwhelming to me. It didn't. I did appreciate, being able to play with Morinfen and making him at least somewhat useful, and being able to play with cards like Baleful Force and Hatred and Gallowbraid, but like it just never felt like it clicked, and it wasn't. This isn't as good as my normal decks that I usually should throw out there, but it seemed like an interesting experiment. I wouldn't. I'll be honest, like I wouldn't recommend this deck. But maybe you guys can take it and use it as a basis for something a little better. Really what it comes down to is I think I had too much life gain to really make the Suicide Black theme work. And so I was slightly disappointed with the way that this deck turned out. But, you can't win them all. I showed you guys a couple games, and so you can kind of see what happens. The good thing about doing the Voltron is that it turns any of your creatures into threats, and even though there's 20 creatures in here, I felt like I could always use another threat, another creature sometimes. So I think a nice little token maker like Bitter Blossom could be useful in the deck as well. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the games. If you haven't checked them out, go check them out now. You know what? I mean, take a look at like these old, unused, rare sort of like commanders and legendary creatures that you just don't see, and see what you can do with them. I'm going to be messing around with a couple more guys in the future, so we'll see what else I come up with. All right. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy, and until next time.